Hi everyone. In this short lecture pod, I'm going to introduce you to a technique for context mapping, which is an important method in social design to aid your design thinking. Context mapping will help you to define the change that you want to make through your social design project. It'll also help you to establish your intended audience, which is our current focus, and later to plan your strategy. Every problem exists within a context. Understanding the context of your problem and mapping it is how you identify what Danielle Meadows calls leverage points in a system. That is, the right spot to create maximum impact, whether related to placing or timing. This is also known as positioning. The aim of context mapping is to help you to deliver the right message to the right people in the right place at the right time. This is important as social design projects often don't have the resources to waste on huge poster drops or multiple channel campaigns. They tend to be much more precise and much more strategic, and this is something that context mapping can help you to deliver. It'll be pretty clear to most of you by now that social design is focused on making change, making a positive difference to an identified social problem. Herbert Simon famously argued that design is a discipline that devises courses of action aimed at changing existing situations into preferred ones. The implication of this is that every design project that we embark on is optimistic and ambitious about the possibility of making change. This idea is actually contained in the word project. To project literally means to throw something forward, toward the future, sometimes to make it bigger and stronger in the process, and I'd like you to think of this when you hear the term design project. An important part of design research is to explore change through the generation of visual concepts. Will this change be possible? Who or what will it affect and how will it affect them? And who are the change agents, that is, the people who will help this change to happen? This is our audience. Design thinker Elaine Findelli understands the connection between the design process and change in this way. He says, a new logical structure of the design process is, instead of a problem, we have state A of a system. Instead of a solution, we have state B of a system, and the designer and the user or audience are part of a system. The system, according to Findelli, is dynamic and open-ended, and the designer can only act within it, not upon it. So the designer needs to know what's going on in the current state of the system in order to bring about change. This is why contextual inquiry is so important. Okay, so let's map this. Instead of starting with a design problem, we start with a problem context, the state of the system at A. Instead of a design solution, we have the state of the system at B, the way we would like things to be, or the improved situation. Think of your design project not as an endpoint, but as a way of mediating change, a way of getting from state A to state B. As design researchers, our project ideas lead us to investigate the current problem context as a system composed of people and practices, attitudes and assumptions, places and cultural signs. State B is the change you intend to create through your project and could mean any number of improvements, including, but not limited to, the creation of new social norms, perceptions or behaviours, helping people to feel empowered and confident to act on a problem that they know about where they might not once have felt that empowered, or making people aware of a problem in the first place, and encouraging people to become involved as donors, volunteers, advocates or participants. These are all powerful actions that a social designer focuses on. The designer's job is to select the best state B, the desired change that you can stand by and that is achievable in terms of your own knowledge and sphere of influence. Okay, now we're going to map a context with an example from a previous student that you may be familiar with, the SYNC project by Jennifer Norbergen. We're now going to see how we can understand this project in terms of the idea of a change from state A to state B. So the initial project idea was around reducing discrimination faced by elders in the LGBTI community. So if we think about this problem contextually, our first question might be around people. Who were the relevant stakeholders in State A? For Jennifer, these were LGBTI youth and LGBTI elders, non-LGBTI elders, i.e. peers who might live with the elders in the aged care facility, aged care workers, and families and children of these elders. Now, some of these people are going to be allies for the project, so these are people that will help us to make a change. And there may also be some opponents, people who would seek to hinder or hold the project back. It's really important to try to identify who these people will be, because that's where your intended audience is going to emerge. The next context that's important to map are attitudes and assumptions. So the question here, what are the attitudes and assumptions perpetuating the problem of LGBTI discrimination? Clearly, homophobic attitudes top the list, and these are often in the general community, but also particularly related to age. So an assumption perhaps that there aren't any LGBTI elders whatsoever. We also tend to make some assumptions about the people that we've identified as important in this problem context. So, for example, LGBTI youth, we tend to assume are technologically savvy, socially connected, and confident. And with the elders, we perhaps assume that they are reserved and shy because they grew up in a much more conservative culture, perhaps that they feel culturally marginalised. It's really important to note here that doing social research, i.e. actually talking to people, is a really important way to check some of our assumptions. The next context to look at concerns places, so places and environments that are important in the problem context. And obviously in the SYNC project, it was really important to look at aged care facilities themselves, whether the elders were highly dependent or whether they had quite a degree of independence, because this often represents a very big change in their lives, moving from their own homes into an aged care facility. So it was very important because of an identified problem of institutional invisibility and a kind of assumption of heterosexuality in these aged care facilities, but also because if the facility itself doesn't come on board and provide access, then the elders wouldn't be able to participate in any new initiative. So very important to get that facility on board. The next context, very important to map, concerns visual culture and imagery. And this is often where you'll find evidence for those attitudes and assumptions that we talked about before. So as far as this project went, there was a distinct lack of representation of LGBTI elders and their families in literature and the media. And the pro-LGBTI imagery tended to be very youth-oriented, focused on the body beautiful, for example, in underwear ads. So what was found is that as far as elders go, they were very invisible in terms of visual culture. So this is very important to understand in terms of this project. The final context that's important to map is called promising signs. Design thinker Ezio Manzini says that designers are the antenna of a culture. They need to have an eye and an ear out for promising signals that they can identify, amplify, and transmit through their design work. So in addition to the problem context we've started to elaborate as State A, we also need to add into State A the promising signs. And these are the good things that are already happening that you know about or you might need to discover through your research. What groups, events, resources, initiatives, activities and precedents are already out there and attempting to make a difference to the problems that you've identified? This is where your clients could be, or people that you might ask to support your campaign. So as far as the SYNC project went, these were the Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras, which could potentially be a very important event to launch any initiative around. Jennifer also discovered that there was an existing LGBTI seniors community visiting service, and this might be a service that could be supported to grow or to become advocates as part of this project. And finally, precedents. Jennifer found a very important documentary called Gen Silent, which identified the discrimination, fears and isolation of these elders in aged care facilities through personal stories. In fact, this precedent became very important in Jennifer's social research because she was actually able to screen this film with LGBTI youth, and through this screening and a discussion, she did discover there was a high degree of empathy for the elders and also primed the youth to get involved. So that really overturned the assumption that young people don't care about elders, which was very important in relation to her project. Okay, so in terms of State B, the way we would like things to be, in the SYNC project, these included non-discriminatory aged care for LGBTI seniors, more supportive aged care workers, socially connected elders in aged care, and improved quality of life for LGBTI elders. It's really important to take account of limitations and think about the right scope and scale of your State B proposition. In our example, Jennifer had lots of State Bs, but some of these, for example, non-discriminatory aged care, is really a bit too big a change for her to influence through a single social design campaign, because it would require big changes to how the aged care system is run. We need to be looking for State Bs that are easier for you to support and to start a conversation. So a more manageable State B for Jennifer's project was really focusing on socially connected LGBTI elders in aged care. And what she discovered through her literature search was that this tended to also improve quality of life. So social connectedness had this additional benefit in terms of improved quality of life. So the change you want to make is not simply going to happen. Change happens via people. So we need to define who will help you to make the change. These are your change agents, and you might find these people in that initial mapping of people in your problem context, or perhaps within those promising initiatives that you've mapped that are already going on. So these people might be able to apply pressure, to lobby, to facilitate, or to get involved in your particular social design project. In Jennifer's case, the LGBTI youth were really found to have the greatest capacity to act on the situation she wanted to improve, i.e. to promote socially connected LGBTI elders in aged care and improve their quality of life. In her initial research, Jennifer found this group was highly technologically literate, using social media extensively, even perhaps more than non-LGBTI identified youth. So this became her intended audience, the people she needed to reach through her project and to engage to help her create her change. The national charity devoted to erasing racism, Altogether Now, suggests it's important to use the dominant tools in a culture to help make change happen more quickly. So in this case, the tech-savvy, socially connected youth also helped identify social media platforms as important leverage points, even though this was a project seeking to support elders, and the assumption is that elders are more comfortable with paper-based communication. So in sum, the stakeholders are the beneficiaries of your campaign. They are who you are trying to help. In Jennifer's case, the stakeholders are the LGBTI elders. The target, or as I prefer to call them, intended audience, are who you need to engage to create the change. In Jennifer's case, this is the LGBTI youth. Clients are advocates who might commission or support your work. In Jennifer's case, this is the government health departments responsible for funding aged care facilities or the aged care facilities themselves. Her project to create a platform for young and senior LGBTI community members to engage with each other was carefully designed on the basis of solid contextual and social research. And remember, the SYNC project is not a solution, it's not an end in itself, but rather it's a way of mediating change. It's a way to get from State A to State B. Okay, now it's your turn to map your own projects in terms of State A and State B to help you identify both your target audience and the change that you want to make through your social design project, which could be the creation of new social norms to help people feel empowered to act on the problem that you've identified or to introduce them to this problem in the first place, and to think of ways of getting people to become involved as donors, volunteers, advocates, or participants. Okay, that's it, and here are some references that I've used to put together this lecture, and we'll see you in class.